Good day. Good day. My name is Mel Hannah, and it's an extreme pleasure to be with you today to share some of my background and experiences and hopefully be motivating to a lot of you out there. Again, the name is Mel. I am a native Arizonan, born up in a little small town in northeast part of the state called Winslow. And yes, if you've heard that Eagle song, I stood on that corner many a day. After growing up in Winslow, where my parents came from Texas, I finished high school there, was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to Eastern Arizona Junior College, which was at the time primarily a prep school for BYU. I went there as a Baptist and I returned as a Baptist, but had a great experience at Eastern Arizona. From there, I got over to Flagstaff, which is now NAU, but at the time it was Arizona State College, still on the music and football scholarship, played a lot of ball there. And that's where I kind of got my first inclination, if you will, to get engaged in some form or fashion. While at NAU or ASC, we had a very good football team, ended up being the small college playing in the small college national championship in St. Petersburg, Florida. Great honor. We played the number one team. We did not win the game, but the experience there was the Deep South was still segregated. And with three African-American players on my team and one African-American player on the other team, we were not allowed to stay in the hotels on the beach. We stayed in private homes and had a very good experience, but nevertheless, that was our experience in terms of segregation, if you will. So returning back to Flagstaff, got married, started a family, became engaged in a program called when President Johnson exhibited his war on poverty. It got me engaged at that time in a lot of activity generating to help folks of color, rural communities, et cetera, et cetera. Went to work for what was then the Northern Arizona Council of Governments, which was a community action agency, and got really involved in delivering of services to low-income folks of color, rural communities, et cetera. That kind of led to, well, rather than just implementing programs, why not get engaged in the end that makes the policies? And that's where the political engagement became active. So I was fortunate enough to run for the city council in Flagstaff, Arizona. I was the first African-American elected to that city council, served for 12 and a half years. Then I also ran for and was elected to the Coconino County Board of Supervisors, which dealt with the whole county. And that really kind of enhanced my whole function in terms of civic engagement. And civic engagement, to me, just to insert a personal definition, is really what we do to make lives better for ourselves, our families, our community, our state, and our union. And it's that simple. If you're doing something that makes that life better for yourselves and your colleagues, then to me, you're engaged in civic engagement. And the title is nice and it's new, but it's really pretty basic in my opinion. So after serving in Flagstaff, those two elected terms, moved down to Phoenix some 20 plus years ago. And to retire, I thought, but got heavily engaged in other community activities, other civic engagement functions. Worked for the governor of Simonton as assistant director for as equal opportunity office for a number of years. I worked for the Greater Phoenix Urban League, which is one of the nation's oldest civil rights organizations, for 10 years. And most recently worked for then Mayor Greg Stanton as his civic engagement coordinator. All those things really relate again to what motivates us. What is our purpose here? What is our objective? And to me, a term that fits best is there's two important days in your life. One is the day you're born, and the next one is why. And so to me, civic engagement became the answer to that why. And it's very, very basic. It's very essential. If we aren't engaged in the battle, we become victims. And that to me was what simply we ought to be doing. Have been engaged here in the Valley for a number of years in a lot of activities. Currently, I serve as the chairman of the Arizona State Secretary of State Civic Engagement not Civic Engagement, Community Advisory Council. I also am a charter member of the Arizona Commission of African American Affairs, heavily involved for generations in the NAACP. Again, all of these functions are collected and connected in terms of improving the quality of life for everyone. And that, to me, has been the reason I've recognized my second day. And why was I born? This is perhaps an answer to it. It's not easy sometimes. It gets very confusing, gets very sensitive. But I think at the end of the day, with a lot of folks that are engaged in this activity, we can make it happen. I know there's been the analogy made of the baton passing, which I agree with. There's two important points to make in terms of that rationale. Number one is that no matter what your role is on when you have your baton, there's an instant where you are passing it on or you're getting it from another person. There's an instant where you're both holding the baton at the same time. That is critically important because as you pass this baton, as you do your piece and at your point in time, the thing that sometimes we forget to realize is that we are part of a team. None of these things are islands among themselves. We got to be engaged. We got to be connected. We got to be coordinating with other functions so that we can have an impact that makes the most about what we're here to do. So I encourage students. There's no magic formula for when you start this activity. As you recall, I was probably 25, 26-year-old before I got seriously engaged. But it can start very, very early, or you can do it late in life. But the important thing is to make a connection. Pick up your baton, be ready to share it with someone, but also remember that you are a part of a team. And if we had that team concept go forward, we can, at the end of the day, say, job well done. Thank you so much. And in closing, that's kind of my story.